Welcome to this session on cognitive theories. The major proponent of cognitive theory is the famous American linguist Noam Chomsky. A cognitive function mediates between stimulus and response. There is a sort of data processing mechanism which happens. Cognitive function is the faculty which permits the learner to monitor and evaluate different stimuli. And then the learner coordinates and regulates them and develops appropriate responses to them. Here, the learner is the controller of the learning process. As you can see, there is a stimulus, and in between the stimulus and response, we have language acquisition device. So learning is a process of developing an insight. Today, we shall discuss two different cognitive theories. The first one is insight learning theory and the second is field theory. Insight learning theory. The theory of learning by insight is a contribution of Gestalt psychologists such as Kohler, Kafka and Wertheimer. Therefore, they are commonly known as Gestalt theories. They consider learning as a development of insight, which is primarily concerned with the nature of perception. Basic concepts of insight learning includes several points. Point number 1. Learning is purposive, exploratory and creative. The total situation is taken into account by the learner. Secondly, a learning situation is a problem situation and the learner can deduce solution by insight if he perceives the situation as a whole. The third point, learner while learning perceives the situation as a whole and after seeing and evaluating the relationship between different parts, he takes the proper decision in an intelligent way. Let me move to the fourth point. While learning, the learner always responds to the proper relationship rather than to the specific stimuli. The last point, learning occurs spontaneously and suddenly by the development of an insight. Kohler's experiments. Kohler conducted experiments on a chimpanzee named Sultan. The chimpanzee was put in a cage and a banana was hung from the roof of the cage. A box was placed inside the cage. The chimpanzee tried to reach the banana by jumping, but it could not succeed. Suddenly, he got an idea and used the box as a jumping platform by placing it just below the hanging banana. In a second experiment, Kohler made this problem more complicated. In the second experiment, a banana was placed outside the cage where the chimpanzee was put. Two small sticks, each too short to reach the banana, was placed inside the cage. One of the sticks was hollow at one end and the other stick could be fitted into it easily. Sultan tried to reach the fruit with these sticks one after the other but failed. The animal started examining the whole situation and suddenly the moment of insight came. He then joined these two sticks together and reached the banana. From his experiments, Kohler concluded that in the solution of problems, The ape did not resort to blind trial and error mechanism, but reached intelligently, which he called insight learning. The sudden solution of the problem requires understanding of the problem. The understanding comes from the perception of the relationship between the goal and the obstacle. When a child comes upon a solution to a problem all of a sudden, after not have been able to solve it previously, the learning is known as insightful learning. Insight development involves the following criteria. It is greatly facilitated by previous experience with similar problems. Insight also involves a little bit of trial and error behavior. Insight formation is closely related to the intellectual development of the learner. The higher the intellectual level of the learner, the quicker will be the occurrence of insight. Insight learning involves understanding and reasoning about the problem. Now, let us see what are the educational implications of this. The teacher should present the subject matter as a whole. This has made learning an intelligent task requiring mental abilities instead of automatic responses to specific stimuli. The teacher should motivate the child by arousing his interest and curiosity. The learner will then be able to solve problems by insight. The teacher must help the learner to recall what has been learned earlier and relate them to the new learning. Learning must be properly graded, and this theory has made learning a purposeful and goal-oriented task. Let's move on to Lewin and his field theory. Field or life space is a psychological representation of the individual's environment. It includes the person, his drives, motives, beliefs, tensions, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and his physical environment, which consists of objects and events. According to Lewin, learning is a change in cognitive structure. That is, a change in the structure of the life space of an individual. The change in the cognitive structure is decided by the valence of the goal. When a person is attracted by a goal, it is said to have positive valence. When the person is repelled by a goal, it is said to have a negative valence. A person tends to move towards a region in life space that has positive valence, and he tends to move away from a region in life space that has negative valence. Field theory considers learning as a change in cognitive structure of life space resulting from the movement of the person from one region to another. The changes in the cognitive structures are caused by the forces operating in psychological field, needs, aspirations, conflicts, etc. Let us see the educational implications of field theory. The teacher should present the whole problem and evoke the cognitive and emotional readiness in the learners for optimum learning. In order to achieve optimum communication and meaningful give and take, a teacher should try to work out the life space of each student in class. Motivation is an important factor in bringing changes in the cognitive structure. According to field theory, a change in the structure of knowledge may occur with repetition. The teacher should use reward and punishment according to the needs of the situations. Problem-based learning. Education has been viewed here as a problem-solving procedure to enable the individual to meet and solve the problems of real life. Problem solving is a deliberate act on the part of the individual to overcome the difficulty or obstacle in the path of the attainment of his goal. In short, problem solving is a planned attack on a difficulty. Now, I would like to draw your attention to the various steps in problem solving. 1. Recognizing the problem. The problem may be a theoretical one or a practical problem. The learner must feel that it is his own problem. 2. Defining the problem. In order to understand the problem, the learner starts analyzing the situation and defines it. 3. Collection of relevant data. The investigator is required to collect all relevant information concerning the problem by all possible means. This will help the individual to widen the span of his knowledge relevant to the problem. 4. Evaluating and organizing the data. The collected information should be evaluated properly to identify essential data. It is then organized systematically. 5. Formulation of hypothesis. The investigator organizes the data and tries to think various tentative or possible solutions of the problem. 6. Evaluation of the hypothesis. The hypothesis formulated is evaluated and weighted one by one. 7. Applying solution. The best solution thus arrived at is then applied to solve the problem in hand. Role of a teacher. The teacher should ensure that the problem is according to the mental level of the pupil. It should be neither too difficult nor too easy. The pupil should be motivated only moderately. He should never provide complete solution to the problems. The teacher should also encourage divergent thinking. The teacher should encourage the students to think in various directions and searching for different solutions. The teacher should present the problem as a whole so that the students may have the perception of the total situation. The teacher should also guide the pupils in collecting, evaluating, and organizing the relevant information about the problem from various sources. The teacher should give practice on varying kinds of problems to develop proper mental set in students so that they may transfer the skill in solving problems in future. Task-based language learning, TBLL. TBLL focuses on the use of authentic language and on asking students to do meaningful tasks using the target language. Such tasks can include visiting a doctor, conducting an interview, a group debate, calling customer service for help, etc. TBL especially is popular for developing target language fluency and student confidence. TBLL can be considered as a branch of communicative language learning. It's better than pseudo-communication that results from the classroom activities with no direct connection to real-life situations. Definition of a task. According to Rod Ellis, a task has four main characteristics. 1. A task involves a primary focus on meaning. 2. A task has some kind of a gap. It may be informational, reasoning, or opinion. 3. The participants chose the linguistic resources needed to complete the task. 4. A task has a clearly defined non-linguistic outcome. Let's now discuss what a pre-task is and also the different types of tasks. In the pre-task, the teacher will present what will be expected of the students in the task phase. Additionally, in the weak form of TBLL, the teacher may train the students with key vocabulary or grammatical items, although this can mean that the activity is in effect almost similar to the traditional paradigm. In strong TBLL, learners are responsible for selecting the appropriate language for any given context themselves. The instructor may also present a model of the task by presenting a picture, audio, or a video. During the task phase, the teacher's role is typically limited to the one of an observer or a counselor, thus the reason for it being a more student-centered methodology. There are three basic types of tasks: information gap activity, reasoning gap activity, and opinion gap activity. Information gap activity involves a transfer of given information from one person to another or from one place to another. It calls for decoding or encoding of information from or into languages. Reasoning gap activity involves deriving some new information from the given information through processes of inference, deduction, practical reasoning, and so on. Opinion gap activity involves identifying and articulating a personal preference, feeling, or attitude in response to a given situation. Self-directed learning. To indulge in self-directed learning is to become a self-directed person. The individual takes the initiative and responsibility for what occurs. Individuals select, manage, and assess their own learning activities, which can be pursued at any time, in any place, through any means, at any age. The four major steps in self-directed learning includes being ready to learn, setting learning goals, engaging in the learning process, and evaluation of learning process.